Star Trek, The Nerdy Frontier. These are the discussions of the Good Times Society. Their continuing mission, to explore each episode, to seek out new topics and ridiculous observations, to boldly watch what they've already watched before.
Justice. Let me pull up my notes for this, sorry. This one's...
The best episode ever?
These outfits, too. Oh, my God. All right.
I got one. I immediately ordered one. For me and my Animal Crossing character.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's design our outfits as if we were one of the Edo, right? I mean, I feel that the only nipple showing things that a lot of the men wear doesn't cover from the wind very much. So I at least want some coverage on my shoulders, right?
Hold on. Do an intro.
It's a cold intro. There'll be an intro.
I don't like it. Say welcome to the show.
We have laws around here, Jake. If you don't follow the laws, you're gonna get executed.
It's execution.
So are you willing to kill me because I introed the show in a way you don't like? Is that really something that you would go for in your society, Becca?
Well, I'm afraid you are standing in a zone of punishment, and there's nothing I can do, even though I don't agree with it.
You should have known.
Now, I have written a white line in between my intro and other things, so I guess this is my own fault for not noticing that. Welcome to the show, everybody. This is episode 7. We're talking about justice today.
Yeah.
Justice! Best episode in season 1!
Okay, we've got some strong opinions right off the gate, huh?
I mean...
eat dope, eat dope, eat dope!
Most eye-catching episode of season 1 for sure. I was searching for pictures to put in my notes, and there's a lot of Masseuses in a lot of my top image searches.
It's too lewd for this podcast.
Why do you think it's the best episode, Becca?
Oh, okay. So they're all on Molly. No, just kidding. But really, they are. It's an Eden, hence the name Edo and the Edo people. It is a society that has found a way to get beyond crime, and that's through everybody banging all the time. It's just very beautiful. It's very sensual.
At the drop of a hat. Any hat.
I would say.
Yeah.
Any type. We're talking cowboy. We're talking page boy. We're talking beret. We're talking fedora.
Milady.
Maybe not fedora.
And it is a law that if a hat drops, you do have to bone, right?
Right.
Only if you consent to it.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting that you have strong feelings towards liking this episode, because I feel like a lot of it doesn't quite stand up and still feels very original series Star Trek, because you can see Roddenberry's sort of fingerprints in all of it. But the general concept, I guess I could get behind, but the way it was executed left something to be desired.
Yeah, well, and let me just go out ahead and say that my least favorite part of the episode was that they must have killed all the black and brown people for falling into flower patches, because there wasn't even a brunette. I wrote, what happened? Are they anyone of darker skin or hair is in a dungeon somewhere? And then, of course, we find out about this punishment zone that happens if you fall into flowers.
It's like a sexy space Sweden, it seems like.
That is what I wrote. I was like, do we need to be concerned, or is this just Sweden?
I think they try to really generalize when they make alien races for the first couple seasons. Like, they try to keep everybody the same general look.
Right, and that directly comes from a casting office. You can say, okay, the Edo people are blonde and blue-eyed and tan, like, type of thing. Like, that's, if you just put out that casting, there are so many actors that you can get. You might as well try to make them all look the same, because they're supposed to be like a created life form.
To me, it just makes everybody look beautifully inbred. Like, everybody looks the same, but also good.
Right, and also I forgot about V-neck shorts.
Oh, yeah.
Just as a concept.
I mean, they really had to shave low.
Some of them didn't, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, there was some real body hair here that definitely high definition came into effect on this episode.
Right?
I remember this episode pretty vividly from my childhood. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Especially...
I had no recollection. This is not one I watched with my mom.
But also just the danger of, like, breaking the law could get you killed as a kid was something really kind of intense.
And also sexy.
And also kind of sexy.
Everything about this place is sexy, even the stakes. Now, I did write, consent is not something ever heard of on this planet, but then they have this line where they say, when they're talking about Wesley and whether they should do something else rather than quote unquote play before going to their meeting, and they're like, oh, well, we don't want to make him uncomfortable. Yeah, our rule is as much as anyone is comfortable with. And so, it was the version of consent that was around at that time.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of like high school theater where everybody kind of hugged or didn't when you first met them. And you kind of had to get used to always hugging every single time you saw somebody, even if you saw them last period. Right. You're like, oh, hey, and then you give you a hug again.
Jake, have you met me?
You were a theater kid, right?
I was a theater kid, and we would have underwear dance parties. That's a side note, but it did remind me of Ito quite a bit.
Right.
Xander knows.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's like a staple is underwear dance parties and
absolutely.
Any sort of after party at Denny's.
Now, before we get into the drama of the episode, there's so much more to appreciate, like Riker's reactions on the ship before going down.
Listen,
he was all about it.
My very first note was Riker is horny on Maine. Like, he did not cover this up whatsoever. And he's like, we're going to bone all these aliens. I'm first in line. Here we go.
Yeah, the first officer, you seem very interested in beaming down. Is this so? Yeah.
I feel like that was a dual purpose of Riker's need to be the leader of the away team and to shut down Picard. He's like, I'm actually going to be the point person for meeting all of the ladies on the away mission. Right?
This was a very Riker featured episode because you had the parallel between with Riker being that ladies man and suave sort of guy of the time, like who was seen as sort of like the heartthrob of the show versus this militaristic hard-nosed number one,
Yeah. So in the episode, the Enterprise off camera has actually colonized a planet in a star system, and they've also found another set of life forms in a nearby planet in that same system. And they find these life forms on a Class M planet, which, Becca, do you know what a Class M planet is?
Tell me more about Class M.
Yeah. So Class M is essentially, there's this ranking system of planets because you can kind of...
Oh, I got it. It's because it's...
inhabitable.
Oh.
So a Class M is sort of most Earth-like, where there's an abundance of resources and the atmosphere is conducive for humanoid life forms.
Yeah, it's
to
the
frolic and jog everywhere.
Right.
Yeah, if they find an M-class planet, they definitely bookmark it for future colonization or habitation.
Right.
And they did describe this later in the episode. Picard is explaining, I think, to the godlike satellite, our people, we just want to make sure we spread our seed all around in case one planet gets blown up. We need to have other colonies to prolong humanity's existence.
Yeah. So, this is actually an interesting point that you bring up because where we were talking about how all of the Edo kind of look the same, they needed to find what was humanity's shtick. What was their thing as an alien that other races would find, and they've sort of narrowed it down to humans spread. Their good qualities include their adaptability and their ability to go out and colonize or spread or terraform or meet or whatever other races, and that's their thing.
So surprising that there weren't any more varietals of humans on Edo.
Yeah. Well, they're not human.
All their seeds. Well, humans that had come there. For example, her interest in Worf showed of the Edo representative.
Didn't she say,
really
I welcome this huge one?
Yeah.
Yes, she did.
But this is also...
as she pressed up against him.
It's sort of the first time that because you have to remember at this time, Klingons were still seen as the enemy from the original series. And so they're really sort of rebranding this Klingon in Worf. And this was the first time that this Klingon was seen with some sort of sex appeal. Because what an alien weird thing. But they're introducing this concept of aliens might be attracted to other aliens or finding whatever it is beneath the surface. So that in itself is beautiful, but there are problems.
Star Trek was known for kind of breaking that mold, though, right? Because the first interracial kiss, and then also, Kirk was always making out with plenty of blue-skinned people, right?
Yeah. And Michael Dorn already broke that by being such a bae, even with those teeth and that mullet and the forehead. Still bad.
And we see, this is sort of us attributing to it, but we sort of see instances of both Tasha Yar and Riker interacting with both male and female Edo, or female and female presenting Edo. And that is sort of like this nod to maybe presumed bisexuality or something else that's going on under the surface, which, grasping at straws, but we'll take what we can get.
Yeah, they could have used a little more of everybody hugging everybody at the beginning if this is really a free love society. I mean, why are we being so gendered about it? And talking about Klingon and Worf, it led to one of my favorite lines of the episode from Riker, which was, "If you weren't Klingon, I'd think you were bragging." Oh, maybe he doesn't say Klingon.
Something like that, yeah.
If you were another man, I'd think you were bragging. When he says these human women are too fragile to have sexual relations with me, I would break them.
And to a point, he's not wrong, but there are definitely some human women that can handle him.
Yeah.
I mean, when Worf was greeted, he even said, "Nice planet."
Nice planet.
Yeah, it's a nice planet.
How must Wesley Crusher feel being on this planet? Because he sure led with his ignorance a lot. He was like, "I'm definitely not ready for any of this," despite all of his friends really wanting him to be ready for it.
Yeah, I think this was an instance of Wesley as the character kind of getting put into a situation and used as a scapegoat to sort of explore this concept of, like, if you break a trivial law, how far should the consequences go to maintain the status quo of peace? And they needed a scapegoat. It could have been like a security officer or someone else that was lower ranking, but they're like, why not use Wesley?
Yeah, and who already must have felt extremely uncomfortable. I mean, just imagine any time you're watching, old people do it in a movie. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be ageist. I just get uncomfortable. I just think, I didn't know that was happening. Oh, wow. It's like no kid wants to know that their parents are doing it.
Right.
And poor Wesley, every parental figure he has aboard this ship are all talking about how much they want to hump these Edos.
See, I was wondering about, like, if he's uncomfortable or if he's super curious, because he's at that age, right? And, like, he's on a planet. It's almost as if his parents took him to a swinging party and said, "Go hang out with the swingers' other kids."
Right.
And the kid's like, "Let's play ball," and then just stare at him.
Oh, but the moment when she asked him to play ball and she's like, "Hey, I wonder if you could teach me something." And he's like, "There's some things I haven't learned yet."
I know, and then he tells him about a bat and they look at him like he's insane.
The most phallic of all objects?
Yeah, he really described it in terms length and girth.
No, it's true. And like when you sit down and think about it, how to explain these concepts to someone who potentially is completely alien, I think this was kind of mishandled a little bit, because on one hand, it could be a healthy thing of exposing kids to just a normal, healthy amount of intimacy and touch and not making it a taboo thing. But on the other hand, it was totally bungled, and they're trying to give Wesley these sort of like teenagery moments of, like, whether it's with alcohol or with things that are traditionally dealt with in these like daytime or primetime dramas, and so that it leads to a lot of these interesting sort of interactions. I don't know. I'm not a fan of this episode too much, but I can see where they're trying.
Not a fan. I can understand how you're. I think you're thinking too much about it.
Yeah.
Just look at the outfits and look at the jogging and leave it at that.
The jogging! I was like, I don't remember them running, and they full on do a good coordinated military-style run around the Huntington Library.
But what if they can't run? Oh, we can run.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
That set was amazing, too. That was in Huntington Library in Pasadena, where a lot of that was done. There was a location that I think the building itself is used as Starfleet Academy in a lot of other places as well.
Yeah, it's a water treatment plant or something along the lines. It's around here. It's in like Van Nuys, I think.
Oh, is it? I haven't.
Or something along those lines.
Picture there when quarantine was lifted.
Add it to your Star Trek tour of Hollywood.
That as well as,
Tillman
that's it.
Water Reclamation Plant in North Los Angeles.
That's what it is. You can also do the Vasquez Rocks, which was featured very much in the original series as like the planet, and I think they do a few maybe in Next Gen. But
let's go recreate Wesley's fall into the flower bed.
Yeah. Oh, we'd probably get arrested in actuality.
Oh no! And the cops carry around syringes. That doesn't feel super safe.
No.
Oh, they're mediators. No, this is very The Giver-ish,
Yes.
you know? It's like if you're not perfect enough, well, you must be in a punishment zone. So they...
This is the
and
bad
then
place.
it's Tasha Yar and Worf that discover through their conversation, which maybe they're having a little too much of on Ito, you know what I mean? But they find out that the one flaw with this perfect utopia is that if you happen to go across a white line during a time when that zone is a zone of punishment, then you die. It doesn't matter what you did.
Yeah.
So it's very, nebulous what counts as a crime, and where do they have these laws written down?
I kind of suspect entrapment a little bit. Like, don't you feel those mediators were there already, like kind of waiting for the new guy to fuck up?
Oh, totally.
Wait, Becca.
They were just watching that flower bed.
If you were to give an example of some sort of small crime that would have minimal consequences, what would it be? Like maybe going on the grass when it says keep off the grass?
Yeah, Yar's first instinct after the rape gang she grew up with. Her first instinct is a small crime, like keep off the grass violations.
How weirdly specific. Well, yes, that would call for the death penalty.
Yeah, you can do shoplifting or accidentally taking something. Nope.
Really spelling it out for the audience.
Trespassing upon a flower. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first crime we could think. First thing on top of my head at any point in time.
Just right off the dome.
So
Now, teenage Becca heard that, and she said, "No, but my prime directive as a teenager was to always do the thing that a sign said not to do."
You have been executed on Ito, and that's that.
Yeah.
Instantly.
You wouldn't
Never
have
would have
made
made it to the prime age.
Why was that your instinct, Becca?
I don't know. And you know what's interesting? This is very tangential, but David studied psychology, and one of the psychology examples they set up was they put a rope, like, a museum curating, stay behind this velvet rope thing on a sidewalk, and they watched to see who would step over it and who would go around it and who would just like turn the other way and go a long way around. And they took notes on who did what, and a very, very small percentage of people will actually violate a blockade like that.
Yep.
And I think I'm just one of that rare percentage that I just have to do what you're not supposed to do.
I get
think you
so
would move
anxious.
the blockade to another part of the street.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I would. Oh God, teenage Becca just had no control. Adult Becca has the instinct and then doesn't do it.
Well, I think that's very appropriate for the Ito, because when we're examining it, it seems like they're missing a part of their personality, because they've sort of, if you could take a theory of evolution in that, the ones that have that innate instincts were the ones that were killed. What are you left when you have a society of people that will never break the rules?
It's so funny. I wrote, I see the problem now. A society of rule followers.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's interesting about the ending, too. It just kind of comes down to rules need to have exceptions. And then Space God agrees, and we all go our separate ways. Like, that felt kind of anticlimactic in some
way to
way.
minimalize it.
Yeah.
No, it was epic and beautiful. I loved it. They were like, we can't transport.
Right.
And then it was this long speech about there can be no justice so long as laws are absolute. Life itself is an exercise and exceptions.
There it is.
And I wrote it down to tattoo it on my forehead.
Yeah, Picard has a bunch of quotes that you're going to want to get on your forehead, so clear some room.
I want to challenge.
Okay.
Hold on, though. But, like, that was the entirety of the speech. There was no other meat to it besides that, though.
I will say, though, I loved Gates McFadden as Crusher with the motherly instincts in acting. I thought she really, really brought something to a role that could have been minimized, but she followed like protocol up until a point and then broke protocol, and I think it was beautifully performed.
Okay.
I actually got welled up with tears in that moment when Wesley goes over to her.
Me too.
I wrote, Gates McFadden, make me teary.
I have a question about the Prime Directive
Very
here.
thorough notes.
Because how did they make contact with these people in the first place? They're not spacefarers, are they?
No, they were ground bound, it seemed to me.
I like that phrase. phrase.
Because otherwise they would have known about their quote-unquote god that was floating up there.
Oh, it was that Riker went down to explore because they had just come from doing the colonization, right? So they were just sort of, they bumped
into him?
They bumped into
He was going to take a piss.
Because they looked for any M-class planets, and then I think they made contact, and they were able to communicate, and that was what led them to believe that they could communicate. It's a little fuzzy because it's one of these early episodes that didn't really follow the rules.
Captain, I think I need to beam down to this planet.
Yeah.
It seems like there's some ladies DTF.
Yep. That's what it was.
Just going back, I wanted to say one more thing about the idea of rules followers in a society. It kind of makes sense why they're a little stunted in their technological progression.
Right.
Because if you think back to every time advancement has been made, it's been rule breakers in terms of what is possible to be believed. Like, Einstein and everyone who we regard as genius has been outside of the norm, has been breaking what we had previously established as something infallible.
Right. No, and I think this is a great example of sort of this 3-layered effect that we get in a few of the Next Gen episodes, but a lot of the original series episodes of, you've got the planet-bound species that's at one level, then you have the Enterprise, which is at another level, and then you have this overarching godlike species that's evolved past where humanity is now. So you've got these 3 lenses that you got to look through everything, because depending on where you're looking, it either looks like magic or barbarism. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think this is a great example of that, of, these godlike aliens also have their Prime Directive, and they discuss that. Like, maybe they're further along than we are, and it seems like the Enterprise taught them a lesson at the end and let them beam out. But I interpreted it as they were teaching the Enterprise a lesson, and in sort of follow the Prime Directive, but only to a certain extent, because you need to keep the spirit of the law and not the letter of the law, which is the point of the episode.
Absolutely. And I love when the Ito woman lays that out in such explicit terms that sort of makes fun of them. Oh, well, you may be smarter than us, but this has been working real good for us.
Yeah.
Look how naked and hot we are and bronzed.
Yeah, and
how taut our muscles are at all times.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And coming from what you were saying, Becca, too, of like, what if you wanted to create the example of a species that didn't have these outliers of rule breakers? Would they still advance in the same technological way? This might be what the godlike aliens were trying to find out or prove.
Boom. Nope.
Oh, or not.
They're not gonna. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, no, just kidding.
Yeah.
It's different.
But it feels like
I don't want to be the problem is all.
The crew of the Enterprise violated the Prime Directive and also upheld it at different points of this episode, right?
Yes.
Like, they stopped Wesley from getting killed, but they let him get captured. That was a little surprising.
Yeah.
And then they just flat out said, we're taking him. Sorry. And if only Space God hadn't stopped them, they would have.
And that leads to another theme that I saw in the episode, which is the classic trolley dilemma.
There it is.
Because it was said pretty explicitly in the scene where Captain Picard calls in Data to the conference room, and I believe he says the phrase, if I didn't mishear, "Let's have some more talk." Mm-hmm. And then Data sits down and he says, "Would you choose one life over 1,000, sir?" And which is exactly the trolley dilemma.
Yep.
And Picard's response is, "I refuse to let arithmetic decide questions like that."
So
was cool.
I love that you brought this up because it's very important. In original Trek, we saw a lot of these philosophical discussions happening between Captain Kirk and Spock, his number one. And sort of the debate was Kirk's humanity and impulsiveness versus Spock's sort of cold logic. And we have the same parallel with Picard and Data. And we haven't seen that sort of relationship being built quite yet because Picard has always treated Data like a tool or another piece of the computer. But here we get to see Picard realizing, oh, there's something to his babbling. There's something that he can offer here that is an interesting perspective. And I think this scene was the beginnings of that seed, which becomes a very, very important and influential relationship throughout the whole series.
The needs of the many
outweigh the needs of the few. It's exactly it.
And also setting up that relationship of Data, you see things differently.
Yeah.
Help me out here.
And not only that, Picard gave a different answer than we had seen from Kirk or Spock. Of, do you sacrifice yourself for the good of many? And Picard says flat out, we can't justify things that way. We can't boil it down to arithmetic.
I don't accept the premise.
Oh, another thing we haven't talked much about. Babbling?
Babbling?
A babbler? Data's a babbler?
He is a babbler.
He's a babbleoner?
Yeah.
I am not a babbler, sir. I might be a babbler.
I like that he came to that realization, because he is, right? He over-explains things. I have friends like this.
Yeah.
It's concerning.
Hey,
you don't have to
sister.
subtweet me like
Love
that.
But it also shows Data's ability to grow and evolve and his sentience.
I think that's the main thing that they were going with, because they had this shtick of Data just rambling off information, and that was his whole thing. And this was them breaking that trope within the script itself and going, oh, Data is making progress, even though these could seem like Monster of the Week episodes.
When Picard brings up, I forget the Ito's name he brings up. Does she have a name to the woman that
I didn't write one down. I'm not sure.
I don't remember. I don't
just
think
call
so.
her
Well, curly hair
Ito lady
we'll
leader.
call her. This is one of the many instances actually that the Starfleet shows a alien their planet from space kind of thing. And I noticed that this is one of the more glaring times when the carpet was painfully visible.
Yes.
I was like, ooh, that carpet's a little dirty. It needs to be vacuumed before they bring on alien species here.
How embarrassing. You think that they could transport out all the dirt from the carpet? Like,
shouldn't be
transport's
coming
got to
in.
have a lot of cool.
The Enterprise is so comfy. It just feels like a 90s den most of the time. Like, I
Or like
definitely want to have my fall there, you know?
Yeah, like the
Oh my
interior
gosh.
of a 1990s Saturn or something. It's all that cream leather and carpet.
Oh, gosh. I got to decorate a rec room this way at some point in time.
Yeah.
Complete with panels on the walls and everything. Communication panels.
So that was Justice. I feel like you guys really both loved this episode, Becca, mostly, more?
I definitely did. Xander said he explicitly did not.
It's not that I don't like it. I don't like the overt heterosexuality and the assumption in that, and that is a little off-putting to me. And then, sort of the things that we had mentioned. But the core concept I like. And so I get what they were doing. I would have gone about it a different way.
Gotcha. Yeah, I second you on the two hetero. I sort of extrapolated in my mind.
Right.
Like, well, maybe just these couple were meeting.
Yeah, and this is a problem that we'll run into, and I might have brought it up before, but we mentioned that there's a tendency to lump alien species into one trait, and it's frustrating when you're visiting a whole planet when you think about like the diversity that's on Earth. But in this, it's just that a being created another being. It's a small patch. I get it. I can let it go.
And that one trait is horn dog.
Yeah.
And just running around outside playing games.
Always got to run.
Well, our next episode is The Battle, because when a group of Ferengi present Captain Picard with the derelict remains of his old starship, he begins to lose himself in the past.
The drama.
The Battle.
Oh, man. Well, we got to sprint on over to that episode, because if we don't, then we won't be...
Engaged.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a long walk, but I'll take it.
No, it was a quick sprint.